Just like that, we live. Yo, check it. You could have been anywhere in the world today, but you chose to rock with Meez. And for that, I appreciate you. So yo, check it, man. Welcome here. I got a special edition today, man. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, as this is a childhood story. This is a movie I must have watched a good 1103 times as a child and even as an adult. I shared it with my kids, but you know how you share movies with your kids, from your childhood, and they look at it like, so actually had to show them this so that they understand the meaning behind what they're watching. It's hard to show a kid in today's age who watch the Avengers and Iron Man and all that old school movies, man. I even tried to show the kids the Goonies, and they was like, it was all bad, man. But anyway, let's get into this, man. This is called We Finally Understand the Ending to the Never-Ending Story. This is the breakdown to the Never-Ending Story. One of the greatest movies of all times. It ain't just because it's from my era and just because some I loved as a child. It's because of all its hidden meanings and stuff that we're still uncovering today. So for those of you that have not seen this is a jewel right here. So let's get right into this. Let me cue me up. I ain't gonna do a bunch of talking because this thing breaks it down in detail beautifully. So I don't even have to do too much chime in. I'm gonna pop in and out every now and then when it's something I want to add. But yeah, I love this. It really breaks this down. Let's get into this again. We finally understand the ending to the never-ending story. Let's go.
This magical tale about the power of storytelling and faith has so many messages that, like the never-ending story itself, are timeless. Let's hop on Falcor and explore. This is the ending of the never-ending story, finally explained. The never-ending story takes the tried and true formula of the hero's journey and gives it an interesting narrative twist by doubling up on protagonists. Atreyu is tasked with finding a cure for the childlike empress, whose deathly illness threatens the fabric of Fantasia, while a dark force called the Nothing eats everything in its path. From the ivory tower to the swamps of sadness, the southern oracle, and the ends of Fantasia itself, Atreyu searches for a cure at great personal loss. He loses his horse and his best friend Artax.
Stop. If you was a child and you wasn't boohooing at that moment, man, when Artax was sinking, come on, man. Come on, man. Artax, please. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. Come on, man. I'm not. I don't want to mess it up. It's just that you know that. Come on, man.
Which threatens the courage and resolve that got him on this journey in the first place. Fortunately, he makes a new friend in Luck Dragon Falcor, who helps him get back on track. At the first gate of the Southern Oracle, Atreyu faces another test. This time, he must confront his own sense of self-worth, proving he believes in himself. He then has to confront the vision of his true self in a mousy little boy named Bastion, who is reading a book far, far away.
Wow.
Part of Atreyu's journey is complete when he learns the childlike empress needs a new name, and only a human child can bestow it. But there are more setbacks in store.
And before I continue this, how many of you actually know the name that he yelled out for the empress? This is something that was like, one of them those game show questions or whatnot. How many of y'all actually know? Don't go look it up and research. I'm actually asking how many of y'all actually know offhand without going on YouTube or anywhere to look it up. How many of y'all actually know?
Atreyu loses Falcor and his magical talisman and is forced to confront the Nothing's minion with nothing but his own wits and strength. Meanwhile, Bastion has his own part to play in the never-ending story. At first, it seems like a simple framing sequence, with Bastion reading a storybook about the events unfolding for Atreyu and Fantasia. He's grieving the loss of a mother who seemed to support her son's sensitivity and daydreaming, and his escape into flights of fancy are his coping method. When Atreyu loses Artax, Bastion weeps along with him, because he has felt that loss himself.
My horse died. I nearly drowned. I just barely got away from the Nothing.
As he reads, Bastion realizes that he might be the most important hero of them all.
Wow.
And to honor his cherished mother and her memory, he even gives her name to the childlike empress, saving her and Fantasia.
And of course, they're gonna put the closed caption and throw the whole throw the whole thing up.
If it seems silly that a new name might save someone's life, then you haven't considered the power of what we call things. Bastion is called terrible names by the school bullies, which certainly affects how he feels and sees himself. With the arrival of the Nothing, the childlike Empress also loses an aspect of herself that must be reinvented. Her new name is a new start, not just for the Empress, but for her whole world. As Bastion makes his wishes, he ensures that all the friendships made before the Nothing's rampage remained intact. He ultimately gets to experience a ride on Falkor firsthand, and even gives his bullies a taste of their own terrible medicine.
Come on, man. Best moment of the movie when you was a child, man. Getting a ride on Falcor and go back at the bullies, man. Come on, man. Stop acting like you wasn't there with your bowl of cereal and your fist pump, your arms in the air screaming. Come on, man. Getting a ride on Falcor, man. Stop playing.
As the Nothing sweeps across Fantasia, a ragtag bunch meets in the howling forest on their way to the Ivory Tower. The Rockbiter, the Nighthawk and his stupid bat, as well as Teeny Weeny and his racing snail. They are all members of different Fantasian groups with the same mission of beseeching the childlike Empress for help restoring their lands. This unlikely group quickly becomes friends as they realize how each can help the others. The Nighthawk is able to fly to the top of the Ivory Tower and hear the news. The Rockbiter offers all the little ones protection, and the racing snail is here to shatter preconceived notions of what certain kinds of creatures can do. What bonds them is the shared loss of their ancestral lands through the power of dark forces, which brings a theme of colonization into the Neverending Story's mix, and leads to a very grim moment when the Nothing snatches the Rockbiter's friends right from under him.
They look like big, good, strong hands, don't they?
The Rockbiter gives up hope.
Y'all remember that, man? Come on, man. Come on, man. That moment, man, and he felt like his whole purpose, man, of protection was gone because he couldn't protect the little ones, man. And what I didn't get into watching this is at that moment where he lost hope, in his own ability, man. That's when the Nothing got him. Come on, man.
Hope and allows the Nothing to take him, but because of Bastion's clever wishes, he and his comrades are eventually reunited and continued their shared friendship through the collective trauma they all survived. One of the most satisfying things about a fairy tale like the Neverending Story is how far into destruction we travel before the world is restored to rights. The Nothing destroys all of Fantasia except for a single grain of sand before Bastion heals the Empress with her new name. The forces of darkness are defeated, but there's still work to do to properly restore all that's been damaged. Bastion has a huge job ahead of him now that he's no longer just an armchair hero. And when the Empress grants Bastion all the wishes he needs to recreate Fantasia, it's a victory against hopelessness. When we see Fantasia rebuilt in a new form of glory, it reminds us that maintaining hope in even the bleakest of circumstances is a life-affirming act, and one we should strive to cultivate as Bastion does. Falkor might be the single most beloved character in the Neverending Story. Between his hearty chuckle and his friendly canine features, Falkor is a reminder that we must always fight against the kind of hopelessness embodied by the Nothing. While many times luck is actually a product of good circumstances, timing, and privilege, the luck symbolized by Falkor is about the faith that goodness and good people will ultimately prevail.
Man, I just had to pause this for a second, man, because it's just so relevant today, man, especially for a lot of us coming out of this whole pandemic. I don't even know if you can say that on the thing, man. Y'all know what I'm talking about. 2-3 years of that, man. I mean, people just going through it left and right, man. I done lost family members, lost my stepfather, man. It's the weight of what's happened to people over the last 3 years, man, and including myself, man. You're battling depression and having to force yourself up each day, man. And that's why this particular story means so much to me, man. It's the battle against hopelessness, literal hopelessness, and the energies that are trying to take that from you to the point you don't even want to get up and move anymore, man. So this is man, it's just, man, it just hits the soul. That's all I can say. It just hits the soul. I don't mean to intercept. It just, man.
Even when Atreyu is convinced that he failed to find the human child who could give the Empress a new name, Falkor comforts him and reminds him that he did his very best. And that kind reminder is what draws viewers to the Luck Dragon. In a scene that has been traumatizing children alike for decades, Atreyu loses his beloved horse in the swamps of sadness. Even today, people who have seen the Neverending Story 100 times know it is the most brutal scene in the film, and some will even leave the room to avoid shedding tears. Looking at the big picture, though, the terrible events in the swamps of sadness are a perfect metaphor for grief, loss, and childhood trauma. This is probably why adults still have a visceral reaction to the incident even years later, because we remember being Atreyu's age and having to navigate our own losses in different ways. What ends up being beautiful about this painful scene is how it shows us that even a warrior isn't immune to grief.
Wow.
For Bastian, the moment allows him to feel his own grief and begin to process the trauma of losing his mother, and teaches him one of the movie's lessons.
It has to hurt if it's to heal.
Wow. Hey, that man. I'm telling you, man, if you get anything out of this today, understand something, especially when it comes to like depression. Depression, at the end of the day, is simply the lack of movement. It's the lack of movement. You know how when you're going through it over grief or the loss of a loved one or even a breakup and you just want to lay in the bed, you don't want to move, you just want to sit there. It's kind of embodied in water. You know how fresh spring water is rushing and it goes and it's fresh spring water, but then you have stagnant water in ponds. That's where the mosquitoes and the algae grow. That's where all the sickness grows. You have to get up and move. Get up and move. Get on a bike. Call a friend and go on a road trip. You have to move that energy in order to get out of that depression. Switch jobs. I don't care what you have to do, but you cannot stay in that same state. And I don't want to go on and on. I just want to drop that on you.
Avoidance doesn't make wounds go away, and pain has the power to remind us we are still alive and healing. Sometimes people become more cynical as they get older, and this can quickly turn into bitterness and resentment. It certainly does with Bastian's father, who is all business and can't understand why his son can't move on from his mother's death as quickly. He sees Bastian's sensitivity as weakness, and so does the Nothing.
Because people who have no hopes are easy to control.
This is a scarily true statement in our own human world, where every day people lose hope and turn to all kinds of ways not to care about others. Morla, the Ancient One, embodies this despair, constantly saying that nothing matters, echoing the apathy and cynicism that we often see in adults. Atreyu and Bastian, however, both refuse to accept these supposedly grown-up truths.
See, and this is why you see the overuse in drugs and alcohol, especially in our youth, man. When you see what's going on, we got the prison pipeline. We got cats that can't even get a job because they got records and they're just hopeless. They are literally hopeless. So a lot of times they turn to drugs and alcohol. Sometimes alcohol is the only thing to numb that or be able to take them to another place where they can just, you know what I mean? So I have no judgment on it. I get it, and I get it, man. We just have to be able to bring hope back to people. Again, shift their energy, shift their position, just move to another state. Sometimes you just have to get out of your environment, man, but you have to get out of that stagnant energy in order to elevate.
One of the Neverending Story's most important messages is having faith in the competence of children. Just because someone is young doesn't make them incapable of great feats.
He simply can't imagine that one little boy could be that important.
Sadly, Bastian has been bullied for the traits that make him the ideal child to help save Fantasia, so he has no idea how much power he holds in his heart and imagination. When he learns his own strength, though, it's a lesson he'll hopefully never forget. The Neverending Story is packed full of important themes and messages, but one of the most fundamental is about the dangers of bullying, including the way that parents treat their children. The bullying that Bastian deals with from his classmates is awful and humiliating, but the quiet bullying he endures from his father is far more insidious than being tossed into a dumpster by his classmates.
Wow.
He berates his son for his keen imagination and the way he expresses himself in ways that are all healthy coping mechanisms for a child grieving the recent loss of his mother. This is one of the more painful aspects of the film, and explains why Bastion wouldn't want to come back to Earth so quickly once he finally visits Fantasia. Many
That's powerful, man. Cause even myself, remember when you were young, you just used to be able to just daydream to the point people would have to snap you out of it. Like, do you remember that? Just like playing with your toys and you used to see that entire world as a child. Do you know how hard that is to do as an adult now, especially if you've been sitting behind a desk for 10, 15, 20 years? The perfect picture is what's my man in The Incredibles? Was he Mr. Incredible? Sitting at the desk doing insurance, full of power. That picture to me just resonates, man. It's just, man, it's like they're literally taking your ability to daydream away from you. Um, hey, those who know.
kids who are sensitive and imaginative find sanctuary in books and stories on their best days. On a bad day, however, like the one that sees Bastion bullied by both his father and the regular trio of tormentors at school, a book is an even more valuable tool of escape. He simply cannot deal with the real world, and the only thing that makes sense to him is digging into a book he's never read before. There's an almost religious kind of sanctuary in the way the film presents the act of reading, and there's more to it than just escapism. As the bookseller, Mr. Coriander, says, a safe book allows you to return to yourself unscathed by the end. But a dangerous book will change you and fundamentally change how you see and experience the world. The Neverending Story also introduces young audiences to the notion of metatextuality, stories within stories.
Just as he is sharing all your adventures, others are sharing his.
This narrative trick can draw readers and viewers even deeper into a story by making us a part of it, and that's a huge reason why The Neverending Story still resonates with audiences today. As a film, The Neverending Story focuses on adapting the first half of Mikhail Enda's beautiful book about how a little boy saves the world through reading. The Neverending Story 2, the next chapter, was released in 1990 with an entirely new cast, except for grouchy bookstore owner Carl Conrad Coriander. In this sequel, Bastion is trying to get over his fear of heights, which he does not have when he's riding on the back of a luck dragon. When the Orin, the mystical talisman carried by Atreyu, calls to him, he returns to Fantasia where a new evil, the emptiness, is being fueled by a sorceress. She tricks Bastion into making wishes, all the while stealing his memories of Earth and home. 1994's The Neverending Story 3 diverges completely from Enda's book and returns with yet another new cast. This time Bastion battles the Nasty, played by Jack Black in one of his first major roles, and reunites with many characters from the original film. When Atreyu reaches the boundaries of Fantasia, he finds a temple in ruins with elaborate paintings. He's shocked to see the paintings are of him and everything he survived.
That's crazy. That's crazy. A lot of stuff you missed the first time around. You see all in the painting is telling a story that's like already happened. That's crazy.
Neverending Story suggests that Atreyu's journey, like the classic hero's journey structure that it follows, has happened many times before and will probably happen again. This cycle of life and destruction and life emerging again is, in fact, a never-ending story. But more than that, the fight against apathy and hopelessness and replacing them with hope and faith is a story without an ending too. Like the symbol of two snakes entwined, eating their own tails, these important themes from the story continue to be relevant in the human world. The fact that after so many decades, people still watch, engage with, and adore The Neverending Story is simply a testament to the everlasting power of this triumphant tale. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite stuff coming soon.
Wow. Wow. Just like that, we back. Man, that's heavy. There's so many layers in that story. Man, this could have been a two-part series, to be real with you. I actually haven't seen, I think I've seen Neverending Story 2. I don't believe I've seen 3, or whichever one she mentioned that had Jack Black in it. I did not see that. I didn't even know about that. But man, hope you got something out of that. Hope it's something that got you thinking. This particular video is sponsored by 6 Digital Art Library. It's a library of digital art that I put together where each piece of art comes with a mini book to help you delve deeper into the art. So check that out when you get a chance. 6 Digital Art Library. Um, but other than that, man, I enjoyed you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with me. You could have been anywhere in the world today, but you chose to rock with Meez. And for that, I appreciate you. So until next time, I'm out.